Okay, how are you, dear students? Today I am going to give you our lessons, reading passage solving class. The passage is in Cambridge 7 test 3 because already we have seen 2 passages solving classes. Now we are on the 3rd passage. Okay, let's go to the passage directly. In the 3rd passage we need to solve question 27 to 40. So I have already told you to cope up or to become successful in IELTS reading passage. First of all, you have to understand the questions, and before understanding the questions you need to know the passage very well. So first you should see the headline of the passage. This passage is about educating psyche. This kind of passage is very elusive and elaborate because the subject of this passage or the subjects of this kind of passage are very critical. You need to understand the passage carefully because this kind of passage is totally different from the informative passage. This is also a kind of informative passage, but this passage shows you something different question patterns and passages. Actually this kind of passage shows you the expert of findings specific of a topic. Okay, so the headline is educating psyche. When we can't understand something about the passage, then we read some sentences of the first para. In the first para we see Educating Psyche by Barney Neville. Is a book which looks at radical new approaches to learning, describing the effects of emotion, imaginations, and the unconscious on learning. One theory discussed in the book is that proposed by George Lozanov, which focuses on the power of suggestion. So already we have understood that this kind of passage is telling something to us to become expert of education, how to be educated, or how we can educate ourselves. So this passage will say us something like that. Okay, so now we understand the headline and the passage, what the passage is about. So we go to the first questions and try to underline the keywords of the questions. As I have already showed you this kind of thing or this kind of meta in my previous lessons. Okay, question number 27. The book Educating Psyche is mainly, so we can underline this word mainly, okay, or bold this word. This is a multiple questions, the power of suggesting and learning. Here we see the power of suggestions. You can underline this word or bold, make bold. The second one is a particular technique for learning based on emotions. A particular technique here you can bold or make it a different color. Okay, rate the effects of emotions on the imaginations and the unconscious. Here we see the effects of these two topic, imaginations and unconsciousness. Okay, ways of learning which are not traditional. Here we can underline this part, not traditional. Okay, this is the first question. Okay, go to the question number 2. The second question of this passage, 28. Lozanov theories claims that when you try to remember things, what should we do? Okay, this is also multiple questions. Here unimportant details are the easiest to recall. The question says there's unimportant details. Okay, the easiest concentrating hard produces the best result. Here we can underline the word hard. So we see hard something which is very difficult. The most significant facts are most easily recalled. Okay, the most easily recalled. This would be the keyword of my peripheral visions is not important. So here is peripheral, not important. We can underline this one or bold, make it bold, make a different color. Okay, in this passage the author uses in the question number 29, we can see in this passage the author uses the examples of a book and a lecture to illustrate that. So here we see that a book and a lecture. Okay, this is the keyword. Okay, question number multiple choice. This is also multiple choice questions. Number one, both of these are important for developing concentrations. So these two are important. Here we find the word important. Second one, his theory about methods of learning is valid. The question is, in this passage the author uses the examples of a book and a lecture to illustrate that. I mean, why the author uses this kind of examples of a book and a lecture to prove what? Then we understand his theory about methods of learning is valid. So here we can underline theory of the writer. Whether it is valid or not, we can underline this one. Okay, reading is better technique. Reading is a better technique for learning than listening. So here we find a comparison form for learning than listening. We focus on the word listening. We can remember things more easily under hypnosis. Okay, so more easily under hypnosis we can remember this paraphrase, or can be focused. Question number 30, Lozanov claims that teachers should train students to memorize details of the curriculum. Here we find the word memorize, and the teacher's activities. So what the teachers do to memorize: develop own sets of indirect instructions. Teachers develop indirect instructions. We can underline, we can make a different color of these keywords to focus. Think about something other than the curriculum. This one. Think about something other than the curriculum. So here we find the curriculum content. The last one is overloading, avoid the capacity of the brain. Overloading, avoiding the capacity of the brain. Okay, capacity of the brain. So here we see the brain. Okay. Then what do you see from the question number 31 to 36? This type of question is about true false not given. In the first one, in the examples of suggestive teaching in the fourth para. So 100% we can underline this word and make it a different color. Fourth para. So this kind of answer only be found on the fourth para, and there is also information is only. This is a very crucial word. When you find this kind of word only, mainly you must underline or make the word a different color to focus on something. Only variable that change is the music. Prior to the suggestive class, prior to is the very important word. Prior to, I mean, what happened before. Students are made out that the language experience will be demanding. Here is also what will be. This is the projections to be monitored in the follow-up class. So follow-up class is very informative things. Whenever we find the follow-up class, we focus on this type of questions matching with the passes, then we get the answer. Okay, in the follow-up class, in the teaching activities are similar to those used in conventional classes. So here is the comparison of conventional classes with a conventional classes. We also monitor as an indirect benefit. Students notice improvements in the memory. So improvement in the memory is the underline sections to be underlined or make a different color. Teachers say they prefer suggestibility to traditional approaches to language learning. Here we find the preference of the teachers. Traditions. Approaches to language learning. Okay, we can underline this. I'll make a different color of this part. Students in a suggestible class retain more new vocabulary than those in ordinary classes. Here we see retain more new vocabularies comparing ordinary classes. Okay. Now we should solve the questions, and there is also a blanks to be solved from the passes. So this part also very important. Suggestibility uses a less direct method of suggestion than other techniques such as hypnosis. So the word hypnosis we can underline. However, Lesnov admits that a certain amount of dash is necessary in order to convince the students, even if this is just a dash. Furthermore, if the method is to succeed, teachers must follow a set procedures. Although Lesnov's method has become quite as the result of most other teachers using this method have been dash. Okay, so we now go to the first questions of this passage. The first one is the book Educating Psyche is mainly concerned with what? Okay, we go to the passage now. In the passage, we read Educating Psyche by Barney Noble is a book which looks at radical new approaches. Here we find an interesting word, radical, which is not traditional. Okay, radical means to change something new, to make something new with radicalism, or so radical is totally a word that is not a traditional. The breaking word of tradition is radical. So what do you see? The question number 27 says the book Educating Psyche is mainly concerned with the power of suggesting in learning. Okay, a particular technique for learning based on emotion, the effects of emotions on the informations, and the unconscious ways of learning which are not traditional. So here we find the exact matching word. Okay? Not tradition with a radical word, 100% synonym and paraphrasing combination. Here we find. Okay, so this one is solved. The first question answer is this one. Okay, D is the answer. Total D is the answer here. Make it total upward. Okay. Then you go to the next question, question number 28. Lozanov still claims that when we try to remember things, what is going on into us when we try to remember things? Okay, we now go to the passage and try to understand. Okay, proceed on. So, Educating Psyche by Barney Noble is a book which looks at radical new approaches to learning, describing the effects of emotion, imaginations, and the unconscious on learning. One theory discussed in the book is that proposed by George Lozanov, which focuses on the power of suggestion. Power of suggestion. And the question is about what? Illusion of thieves came when you try to remember things. So okay, we go to the part of the remembering something. Okay, Lozanov's instructional technique is based on the evidence that the connections made in the brain through unconscious processing, which he calls non-specific mental reactivity, are more durable than those made through conscious processing. So here you find unconscious processing and conscious processing has a great influence on educating or learning something. What Lozanov says, we see again. Lozanov's instructional technique is based on the evidence that the connections made in the brain to unconscious processing, which he calls non-specific mental activity, are more durable. So here you also can make this part more durable than conscious. Besides the laboratory evidence for this, we know from our experience that we often remember what we have perceived peripherally. So we remember things that are peripheral actually, not the core one. Okay. Long after we have forgotten what we set out to learn. If we think of a book, so in the passage we see there is a questions of a book related to a book. So maybe this question number 28 is fixed on this part, so we can try to understand, try to convince the answer. Lozanov series claims that when you try to remember things, unimportant details are the easiest to recall. Yes, unimportant details, because in the passage we see unconscious processing, non-specific mental activity are more durable than conscious. And it's also find evidence that no, for us, remember what we have perceived peripherally long after we have forgotten what we set out to learn. If you think of a book we started months or years ago, we will find it easier to call peripheral details. The color, the binding, the typeface, the table at the library where we sat while studying it, than the content on which we were concentrating. If we think of a lecture, here we also find a word lecture, because in the question we find a book and a lecture we listen to with great concentrations. We'll also recall the lecture's appearance, mannerisms, our place in the auditorium, the failure of the air condition, much more easily than the ideas we have learned. Even of these peripheral details are a bit of elusive. They come back readily in hypnosis, or when we relieve the event imaginatively, as in psychodrama. The details of the content of the lecture, on the other hand, seems to have gone forever. The phenomenon can be partly attributed to the common dash. Okay, so this kind of answer actually not in the direct matching. We can understand that from this unconscious process, conscious process, remember peripherally, from this kind of paraphrase and words, we can summarize and make a conclusions that we remember most unimportant details are the easiest to recall. So here this first one is the answer of the questions 27, 28. Okay. Then you go to the third questions. Question number 29. In this passage, the author uses a book and a lecture to illustrate that. Already we have read from the passage that the writer uses these examples of a book and a lecture to make his argumentation strong, or to make his finding strong. Already we know, so we match this kind of answer is here. Number one, both of these are important for developing concentrations. His theory about methods of learning is valid. This one is the answer, because the writer uses this part, this kind of this kind of examples or these kinds of examples to prove that he is right, because you have already found the illustrations and backups and examples, lot of examples and proof like this. So this is the answer. Okay, now we go to the question number 30. Luzanov claims that teachers should train students to memorize details of the curriculum, develop their own sets of indirect instructions, think about something other than the curriculum content, overloading, avoiding the capacity of the brain. So Luzanov claims, we must find the claim of the Luzanov where he claims something. Okay, we go to the passage and carefully read. Okay, what do you say? Luzanov, actually we try to read from here. Luzanov instructional technique is based on the evidence that the connections made in the brain through unconscious processing, which he calls non-specific mental activity, are more durable than those made through conscious processing. Beside the laboratory evidence for this, we know from our experience that we often remember what we have perceived peripherally long after we have forgotten. Again, we see the question. Luzanov's claim that teachers should train students to. So we should find the word teachers, teacher, where is the involvement of teachers. That is very crucial. We must find the teacher here, because teacher, this question is related to the teacher. Okay, and also from the teaching process. So okay, peripheral. Long after we have forgotten what we set out to learn. If you think of a book we started method of years ago, or we will find it easier to recall peripheral details, the color, binding, typeface, the table, and the library where we said while starting it, then the content on which we were concentrating. If we think of a lecture we listen to with great concentrations, we will recall the lecturer's appearance and mannerisms, our place in the auditorium, the failure of the air condition much more easily than the ideas we want to learn. Even if these peripheral details are a bit elusive, they came back readily in hypnosis when we relate in event imaginatively as in psychodrama. The details of the content of the lecture, on the other hand, seems to be to have gone forever. This phenomenon can be partly attributed to the common counterproductive approach. We started making extreme efforts to memorize, tensing muscles, inducing fatigue, but it also simply reflects the way the brain functions. Luzanov theory made indirect instruction suggestions central to his teaching system. So here we find a word teaching. Okay, so we can make this word bold. In suggestibility, as he called this method, consciousness is shifted away from the curriculum to focus on something peripheral. So here we see the consciousness is shifted away. Here we find a word shifted away. Okay, this is a phrase, shifted away from the curriculum to focus on something peripheral. The curriculum then becomes peripheral and is dealt with by the reserved capacity of the brain. The suggestibility approach to foreign languages learning provides a good illustrations in its most recent variant, 1980. It consists of reading of vocabulary, the test, where the class is listening to music. The first session is in two parts. In the first part, the music in classical Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, and the teacher reads. We find the word teacher here. Teacher reads the text slowly and solemnly with attention to the dynamics of the music. So the teacher is focusing on the music, reads the text slowly and solemnly with the attention to the dynamics of the music. So making a lot of things involving at the time of teaching. The students follow the test in their books. This is followed by several minutes of silence. In the second part, they listen to Baroque music, Bach, Kali, handle while the teacher reads the text in a normally speaking voice. During this time, they have their books closed. During the whole of the session, their attention is passive. They listen to the music but make no attempt to learn the material. Beforehand the students have been carefully prepared for the language. So what do you see? The teachers and students involvement. The question is presented claim that teachers should train students. Teachers should train students to memorize details of the curriculum. No, develop their own set of no, think about something other than curriculum. Okay, so we find this word other than curriculum. So this is the answer. This one is the answer 100%, because in the passage we find the teacher involved not only for the class, he also involves the students with a lot of other activities such as peripheral things. Here we find it consists of if we bold here, vocabulary test while in the class, listening to music. So to vocabulary we find also the other parts, music and something else, to make the lessons very effective and concentrated to the students, so that they can remember this type of topic for a long time or lifelong or longer lasting. Okay, then you go to the next questions. Okay, so question number 30 has been completed. In the 30, the answer is in multiple choice the answer is in question number C is the answer. Okay, then we go to the next part, true false not given. Okay, question number 31. In the example of systematic teaching in the fourth paragraph, the only variable that changes in the music. So here we find the only variable. What is the only variable? Music. So if you find in the paragraph 4 that in terms of teaching or teaching students, make them learn something, we focus on the music only. So what we find? Only music or others? So in the paragraph 4 starts the systematic approach capacity of the brain, wait a bit, we go to the center, this one is the fourth para. Okay, the fourth para is the systematic approach to foreign language learning provides a good illustrations. In its most recent variant, 1980, it consists of the reading of the vocabulary. We find vocabulary, the test while the class is listening to music. So in vocabulary, we also find listening to music, not only the music, reading vocabulary. The first session is in two parts. In the first part, the music is classical. In the first part, we see that music should be loud about music, and the teacher reads the text slowly and solemnly with attention to the dynamics of the music. So here we find a combination. Teachers reads the text and side by side music. We find music. Okay, so teachers reads the text and also music. So combination of the two. But in the question you find only the variable of the variable that changes in the music. No. So this question must be the false, because 100% contradict with the passage and the information of the questions. Okay, then go to the next one. Prior 32. Prior to Suggestopedia classes, students are made aware that the language experience will be demanding. Prior to Suggestopedia class, I mean before Suggestopedia class, students are made aware. So we see what is seen here. What is seen here. Wait a bit. Okay. Beforehand, the students, I mean prior to. Beforehand is totally matching with prior to. Beforehand, the students have been carefully prepared for the language learning experience. So have been is very crucial here. Have been already done, not will be demanding. So here we find the difference of the tense. Here the passage says that the learners or the students have already been prepared, but what the question says about that they will make this part later demanding, will be demanding. I mean the Suggestopedia class students are made aware of the just only aware, they say just only aware, but the passage say they have already prepared. So this is a totally contradicting information. So this one is also false, because the information is contrasting with the information of the passage. Okay, question number 33. In the follow-up class, the teaching activities are similar to those used in conventional classes. So here you find the similarity. Similar word can also be focused. Okay, so similar to those used in conventional class. So we must go to the part of Okay, now we go ahead. Beforehand, the students have been carefully prepared for the language learning experience. So meeting with the staff and satisfied students, they develop the expectations that learning will be easy and pleasant, and that they will successfully learn several hundreds of words of foreign language during the class. In a preliminary talk, the teacher introduces them to the material to be covered, but does not teach it. Likewise, the students are instructed not to try to learn it from learning to introductions. Learn it some hours after the two-part session, there is a follow-up class. Okay, here we find the word, phrase, follow-up class, paraphrase, at which the students are stimulated to recall the material presented. Okay, once again the approach is indirect. The students do not focus their attention on trying to remember the vocabulary, but focus on using language to communicate through games or improvised dramatization. Such methods are not unusual. Okay, such methods are not unusual. So here we can underline this part, not unusual. Actually this represents usual. So such methods, the follow-up classes, this kind of methods, the passage says are not unusual, means usual, common in language teaching. In our day-to-day traditional teaching, this is common or usual. So what the passage says, similar to conventional classes, 100% matching. The information is right, the information is correct, so we can understand, and the statement agrees with the passage, so we can say this one true. Okay, as an indirect benefit, the students notice improvements in their benefit. Teachers say they prefer suggestive traditional approaches to learning language, so improving their memory. The question number 34 says improving their memories, and 35 says teachers prefer suggestive traditional approaches to language learning. Okay, this method is the preference of the teachers. So what you see, we read the passage and try to find this one. Okay, what is distinctive is this unsystematic method is that they are devoted entirely to assisting recall. The learning of the material is assumed to be automatic and effortless, accomplished. While listening to music, the teacher's task is to assist the students to apply with they have learned what they have learned paraconsciously, and in doing so to make it easily accessible to consciousness. Another difference from conventional teaching is the evidence that students can regularly learn 1,000 new words of a foreign language during a systematic class session, as well as grammar and idiom. Those who experimented teaching by direct suggestion during sleep, hypnosis, and trance states, but found such procedures unnecessary. Hypnosis, yoga, silva, mind control, religious ceremonies, and faith healing all are associated with successful suggestions, but none of their techniques seem to be essential to it. Such rituals may be seen as placebo. Lozanov acknowledges that the ritual surrounding suggestions in his own system is also a placebo, but maintains that without such a placebo, people are unable or afraid to tap the reserve capacity of their brains. Like any placebo, it must be dispensed with authority to be effective, just as a doctor recalls on a full power of autocratic suggestion by insisting that patients take precisely this white capsule precisely 3 times a day before meals. Lozanov is categoric in insisting that the suggestivatic session be okay. So we see, then you go to the question number. As an indirect benefit, so we don't find any kind of information actually benefiting the students, improving their memory as indirect benefit. No, this is from the passage, whether it is direct or indirect, we don't find any information like that. Teachers say they prefer, also we don't find any preference of the teachers involving in this kind of traditional approaches. We don't find teachers say that they prefer a suggestibility technique, method in traditional approaches. Also we don't find such kind of information, so this is also not given. Students in a suggestibility class retain more new vocabularies than those in ordinary classes. This one very interesting, because already we find they can learn 1,000 words. We find that information says they can learn 1,000 new words. Suppose another difference from conventional teaching is the evidence that a student can regularly learn 1,000 new words. So this are found during a suggestivatic session, but says during a suggestivatic session. So here we find a comparison. Suggestivatic methods can make the student learn new words easily. So this is also very important and crucial. Very important and crucial. So question number 36 is true, totally true. This one is true. Okay. And 34 and 35 is not given. Okay, so dear students and learners all over the world, if you need any information on anything to learn that you cannot making it easy by yourself, then you can easily communicate with me. My details and informations and contract details also are given in my YouTube channel, in my website. So feel free to learn anything. I can help you online so that you can get good band scores in IELTS and learn English easily. Okay, thank you very much. That's all for you. Okay.